I'm Michael O'Loughlin, national correspondent for America Media. You're watching Behind the Story. We're just days away from the US presidential election. And given the pandemic, much of the focus this year has been on overcoming the COVID 19 crisis and the economy. What's been less talked about is the role of the United States when it comes to international development. Joining us today is Carolyn Woo, a co chair of Catholics for Biden and the former president and CEO of Catholic Relief Services. Carolyn, welcome to Behind the Story.
Thank you very much.
So, the first question I want to ask is what made you join the Catholics for Biden outreach group this year? Why do you think Joe Biden should be president?
Very much because of Catholic social teaching. So, if you look at the Holy Father's latest encyclical, Fratelli Tutti, there are two dimensions in it. One is human dignity, that that comes first before everything, and that everyone has human dignity. The second one is about social friendship, that we could only go through these issues together, not on our own. And I believe that the Democrats and Joe Biden stand for those two things. If we look at what has happened to people, the immigrants, the migrant crises, if we look at the income inequality and where workers are, if we look at this whole pandemic and who are the people paying the prices, and they're the people at the front line, they're the people who have the lowest income. If we look at the social safety net of people, if we look at the access to healthcare, if we look at how children are supported, all these are what we need to help people flourish, which is the basis of human dignity. That's very, very important to me. And the whole idea that we cannot divide the country, we have to work together on this. It doesn't matter whether it's blue or red or whatever. That as a country, and we know divided we cannot stand. We could only operate on a united basis. And life is sacred to me. I thought a lot about this because all of our work, even at CRS, is really about how do we help life flourish? How do we welcome life? And how do we regard the holiness of life? So the whole issue, of course, of abortion is front in my mind as I think through these things. And after a lot of studies, it was very clear to me that who our president is has nothing, no impact on reducing abortion. The whole idea that Republican presidents appoint conservative judges who then reverse role. Well, we have had 30 years of Republican justices and nothing has happened. The second thing was that if you reverse role, abortions will go down. Well, abortion has been going down for the last 30 years. And we have role and abortion is going down all this period. And in fact, it has gone down under a faster, under a Democratic administration than Republican. And the third thing is really what would reduce abortion is state and local level actions. Yes, state restrictions do help, but actually support for women helps a lot even more. Access to healthcare, easier adoption rule, programs that accompany women to pregnancy, and also all the other things. If a woman does not have health care, how will she go through pregnancy? If her child does not have health care, how will she take care of this baby if she cannot pay the rent? If she lives, from hand to mouth every month, that person cannot really uh, be excited and joyful about welcoming a baby. And so the bottom line really is who the president is has nothing to do with reducing abortion. I think that it was a narrative that was sold to the American people without looking at the different assumptions along the way and that the assumptions do not hold. So, for all of those reasons, particularly for the reason of helping people flourish, the whole human dignity, the idea of inclusiveness, the idea that everyone should have right and should have access to their future in a good way is really what put me into Catholics for Biden.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so we've interviewed some Catholics who have chosen to back Biden as well. Some of them have told us, though, that they actually decided to back Biden in spite of his support for abortion rights. But it sounds like you actually took a slightly different tack where you studied abortion rates in the United States under different parties, and you looked at how different parties support women who are pregnant, and said that you actually think Democrats might help reduce the abortion rate. So, is that correct?
That is absolutely correct, Michael. And yes, that's a different viewpoint. Just like I said, the narrative that people go on that they would support Biden in spite of the Democrats pro Roe versus Wade. As I study the matter, actually, the presidential choice does not have any impact on reducing abortion. In fact, it's irrelevant because if you step through the assumption that Republican presidents appoint conservative justices, that is true. Conservative justices, therefore, will overturn Roe, but that is not true. Um, and there's the next thing that is how important is Roe to reducing abortion. If Roe exists, do we see abortion going up? If Roe is not there, which it has not been sort of within my lifetime, but Roe has been here since 1970s, and we actually see in the last 30 years that abortion rates have gone down, and it has actually gone down faster under Democratic administration. So after studying this, I have to conclude actually whoever the president is and whatever role is, that's not the biggest vehicle to reduce abortion. In fact, then there are other things that could reduce abortion, and that's more in the Democrats' agenda. So you're absolutely right.
Great. So, Carolyn Woo, you were the president and CEO of Catholic Relief Services from 2012 to 2016. So, you certainly bring an expertise and an insight into international development, US led international aid. For those who don't know, CRS is a major player on the international aid scene. It's the US church's branch, sort of contributing to international development around the world. And I'm just curious. Could you talk a little bit about the role of the United States in international aid and international development, and what led you to think that a new administration might bring more, might be better in this area?
Absolutely. So, Michael, just a bit. So, Catholic Relief Services was started during World War II by the U.S. bishops. And so it actually belongs to the U.S. Catholic people. We are represent the Catholic community of the United States. At this point now, Catholic Relief Services probably serve over 100 million people a year. All right, just think about that in over 100 countries and in the poorest and most vulnerable places. Why does the United States have to be involved in international development? I think for three reasons. Number one is a moral reason. And as Catholics, we buy into that. The Pope teaches us that we have to walk toward people who are in difficulties. His newest encyclical, Fratelli Tutti, features the Good Samaritan, which is it doesn't matter where they live, what nation they are, what faith they are. We like them, we don't like them. The Jewish people did not like the Samaritans. It doesn't matter. It's just that from a moral standpoint, that is our teaching. But there's also a political element and an economic element to why we do aid. So on the political element, it is very important. The world does not organize itself. you know, Without coordination, each does its own, each falls to sort of whatever the local, sometimes leadership or the lack of leadership or autocratic leadership, or, you have the most powerful people in the country getting the largest share of allocations and all of those things. You think about a pandemic and the type of coordination which is needed. So the first thing is that the world does not organize itself. And so the US can play a very important role, in terms of making sure that all of our actions in a whole, as a collective. But the third part, actually, Michael, there's an economic dimension to it. Let's not kid ourselves. Um, Companies, commerce are looking for growth. They're looking for growth all over the world. People actually see a lot of opportunities in developing countries. And it's not just US and European countries going into these countries. There's also a lot of fomenting local growth, local capacity, local industries. And in fact, a lot of the developing countries, they import a lot of their goods. And so self-manufacture is important. And that doesn't take away opportunities for the rest of the world, because then as people become more sophisticated, as they become more able, as they have more income, they demand more things. Some of those are very good things, such as healthcare, such as a better education for their children, such as eating healthier, such as exercise equipment. So moral, political, and economic.
Sure. So it sounds like you're saying that there's both there's a moral interest, just kind of doing the right thing, and U.S. Catholics have helped do that with CRS, and then also a political and economic interest. And we're hearing some of your business background there when you were the head of the business school at Notre Dame. So, Caroline, I think we'll leave it there. But thank you for joining us today to kind of explain a little bit about why you're supporting Vice President Joe Biden for president, and really some great insight into why the role of the United States when it comes to international leadership and international aid is very important. We want to just note here that we have extended several invitations to the Trump campaign to invite a member of Catholics for Trump to join us. We still hope to get someone from that organization on the show before Election Day, so stay tuned. For more content like this about Catholics and voting, be sure to check out America's new podcast, Voting Catholic. Voting Catholic is available wherever you listen to podcasts. Subscribe to America's YouTube channel and check out americamagazine.org for more election coverage. I'm Michael O'Loughlin, national correspondent. Thanks for watching.